The all-new 2026 Fiat Fullback Pickup just showed up, and the first thing everyone is asking is simple. Why is it so cheap, and what's the catch? Because on paper, this truck makes absolutely no sense in today's market. While mid-size pickups are exploding past $40,000 and $50,000, Fiat is rolling in with a price that looks like it came from 5 years ago, and that alone is enough to shake the segment. Let's be clear, this isn't some bare-bones work truck from the early 2000s. The 2026 Fullback looks modern, aggressive, and intentionally simple in a market obsessed with oversized grills and unnecessary tech. Fiat clearly designed this truck to do one thing: be affordable without looking cheap. Sharp LED lighting, squared off body lines, a wide stance, and just enough rugged styling to remind you this is still a real pickup, not a lifestyle toy pretending to be one. Under the skin is where things get really interesting. Fiat didn't reinvent the wheel here, and that's exactly why the Fullback works. Instead of spending billions developing a brand new platform, Fiat leaned into shared engineering and proven global truck architecture. That means fewer development costs, fewer expensive materials, and fewer complex systems that drive prices through the roof. Simple frame, proven suspension, and powertrains that prioritize durability over flashy numbers. And no, Fiat isn't chasing horsepower bragging rights. The engines are tuned for efficiency, reliability, and global fuel standards, not drag strip glory. Turbocharged 4 cylinders and diesel options in international markets keep costs low while delivering the torque buyers actually use. This truck isn't about 0 to 60 times. It's about getting work done without draining your bank account every time something breaks. The interior tells the same story. Fiat didn't cut corners, they cut excess. You get a clean dashboard, physical buttons instead of glitchy touch panels, and a screen that does what it's supposed to do without spying on you or locking features behind subscriptions. Durable materials, smart storage, and seats designed for long hours instead of Instagram photos. It's refreshing, and honestly, it feels rebellious in a market that forgot trucks are tools first. So why is it really so cheap? Because Fiat knows exactly who this truck is for. This isn't aimed at luxury buyers, suburban flex culture, or weekend overlanders who never leave pavement. The Fullback targets contractors, small business owners, farmers, fleet buyers, and everyday drivers who just want a pickup that works. Fiat cut marketing fluff, reduced trim complexity, and avoided expensive gimmicks that inflate MSRP without adding real value. There's also a bigger strategy at play. Fiat needs volume, Stellantis needs global relevance in affordable vehicles, and trucks like the Fullback are weapons in markets where Toyota, Ford, and Volkswagen have slowly priced themselves out of reach. By keeping the Fullback affordable, Fiat isn't just selling a truck, they're undercutting the entire segment and daring competitors to respond without killing their own margins. And here's the uncomfortable truth for other brands. The Fullback proves trucks don't have to be outrageously expensive. It proves pricing inflation wasn't inevitable. It was a choice. When Fiat can build a modern, capable pickup at this price point, it exposes just how bloated the market has become. That's why this truck matters far beyond Fiat's lineup. Of course, it's not perfect. You won't find air suspension tricks, massive infotainment walls, or luxury leather everywhere. But that's exactly the point. Fiat made deliberate decisions, and every decision screams cost control without sacrificing usability. In a time when automakers blame regulations and technology for sky-high prices, the Fullback quietly proves another path exists, and the timing couldn't be better. Pickup buyers are exhausted, dealership lots are stacking inventory, incentives are creeping back, and people are questioning whether modern trucks are even worth the money anymore. The 2026 Fiat Fullback enters this chaos as a reminder of what trucks used to be: accessible, honest, and purpose-built. What happens next depends on how the market reacts. If buyers reward Fiat for keeping things simple and affordable, this could force a brutal reset across the industry. If it succeeds, other brands will either follow or double down on overpriced trucks that fewer people can afford. Either way, the Fullback has already done something rare in today's auto world. It started a conversation that manufacturers didn't want to have. And as more details emerge, as real-world pricing becomes clearer, and as buyers finally get behind the wheel, one question will only get louder. If Fiat can build a truck like this for so little, why can't everyone else? Now let's talk about the number that really set the internet on fire: the price. $25,000. Not a teaser price for one stripped fleet unit, not a starting at fantasy that vanishes at the dealership. Fiat is positioning the 2026 Fullback right around that 25 grand mark, and in today's pickup market, that feels almost illegal. When competitors are pushing 40, 50, even 60,000 for mid-sized trucks, Fiat is walking in like it's 2019 again, and this isn't Fiat being reckless. That $25,000 price is calculated. By limiting trim levels, simplifying options, and using global components already in production, Fiat avoids the cost traps that inflate pricing elsewhere. No endless packages, no forced luxury upgrades, no tech bloat that adds thousands without improving reliability. What you see is what you get, and what you get is a real pickup at a price people can still afford. That price point also changes buyer psychology instantly. At 25 grand, the Fullback stops competing with loaded Tacomas and Rangers and starts stealing buyers from compact crossovers, used trucks, and even base sedans. Suddenly, owning a brand new pickup isn't a luxury decision, it's a practical one. That's dangerous for the rest of the industry. Fleet buyers are already paying attention. Small businesses that walked away from new trucks because prices exploded now have a reason to come back. Contractors who used to run vans are doing the math. Because if the Fullback can exist, then the argument that high prices are unavoidable starts to fall apart. And once that excuse is gone, accountability creeps back into the conversation. What makes this even more interesting is how Fiat avoided chasing trends that are already losing relevance. No oversized digital clusters, no experimental tech meant to impress reviewers for 1 week. The Fullback is designed to age slowly, and that's intentional. Trucks don't need to feel new every year. They need to stay useful. Fiat built this with the assumption that owners will actually rely on it, not replace it. There's also a cultural shift happening among buyers. People are tired of being marketed to. They don't want premium experiences anymore. They want fair deals. The Fullback speaks directly to that fatigue. It doesn't try to convince you it's special. It just shows up, does the job, and lets the price do the talking. And that price changes negotiation power completely. Buyers walk into dealerships informed, confident, and far less desperate. When a $25,000 truck exists, inflated add-ons lose their leverage. Suddenly, saying no becomes easy. That dynamic alone makes the Fullback dangerous to traditional sales models. You can already see how this forces awkward conversations inside rival companies. Product planners know they can build cheaper trucks. Finance departments know margins won't survive a price war. Marketing teams are stuck trying to justify costs that now look artificial. The Fullback didn't start this tension, but it exposed it, and while critics will nitpick what the Fullback doesn't have, buyers are focusing on what it does. It starts every morning. It carries what you load. It doesn't punish you financially for owning it. In today's market, that's not basic. That's rare. As more Fullbacks hit the road, their presence will normalize the idea that affordability isn't outdated, that a modern pickup doesn't need to be a financial milestone, and once that normalization sets in, the market won't reset overnight, but it will begin to bend, because when one truck refuses to play the inflation game, everyone else eventually has to respond. Farmers and rural buyers who rely on durability more than screens are seeing a truck that won't punish them financially. Fiat knows volume is the real profit here, not high margins on a few overpriced units. And here's the part most people aren't talking about. That $25,000 Fullback puts massive pressure on the used truck market. Why overpay for a 5-year-old pickup with 100,000 miles when a brand new truck costs nearly the same? That single price decision alone could drag used prices down and force dealers into uncomfortable territory. This is also a warning shot to rivals hiding behind market conditions excuses. Fiat just proved affordability is still possible if you stop designing trucks for lifestyle marketing and start building them for reality. No fake toughness, no luxury cosplay, just a pickup that works and doesn't trap buyers in endless payments. And as more buyers realize what $25,000 gets them in 2026, the question won't be whether the Fiat Fullback is cheap. The question will be whether the rest of the truck market has been wildly overpriced all along. That realization is what makes the Fullback genuinely disruptive. Once buyers accept that a $25,000 truck can still tow, haul, commute, and survive years of abuse, the illusion holding up today's inflated prices starts to crack. The Fullback isn't just cheaper, it's exposing how far the industry drifted from its roots. And Fiat isn't hiding the compromises, which actually works in its favor. Payload and towing numbers are honest, not exaggerated. The Fullback is built to do real work, not dominate spec sheets. It'll handle trailers, job sites, muddy fields, and daily driving without pretending it's a luxury SUV in disguise. For a massive portion of truck buyers, that's all they ever needed. What's fascinating is how intentionally global this truck is. Fiat designed the Fullback for markets where durability matters more than branding and where buyers don't tolerate overpriced nonsense. That global mindset keeps parts cheap, repairs simple, and long-term ownership costs low. The Fullback doesn't win by being the best at everything, it wins by being enough at the right price. And right now, enough is incredibly powerful. There's also the geopolitical angle people overlook. Trucks like the Fullback are built for a world where supply chains are tighter, margins are thinner, and consumers are far less forgiving. Fiat isn't betting on endless growth or blind brand loyalty, it's betting on realism. That alone makes the Fullback feel like a response to where the market is going, not where it used to be. And let's not ignore how this impacts compact trucks and crossovers. For years, buyers were told small trucks were dead, then suddenly brought back with prices that made no sense. The Fullback steps right into that gap and exposes the contradiction. If a real pickup can exist at $25,000, then why are smaller, less capable vehicles costing the same or more? The Fullback also redefines risk. At this price point, buyers are more willing to try something different. Brand hesitation disappears when the financial commitment is reasonable. Fiat doesn't need lifelong loyalty, it just needs one purchase to prove the concept. And once buyers realize they didn't sacrifice much at all, the door opens wide. What's happening here isn't just a product launch, it's a correction, a slow, uncomfortable correction that the industry has been trying to delay. The Fullback arrives as proof that affordability didn't vanish, it was priced out on purpose. And as this truck quietly spreads across markets, influences buying decisions, and shows up on job sites instead of influencer feeds, its real impact will grow, not through hype, but through repetition, through visibility, through people realizing that the most disruptive vehicle in years isn't electric, autonomous, or futuristic, it's affordable. And with every sale, every comparison, every buyer who walks away from an overpriced alternative, the Fullback keeps asking the same uncomfortable question the industry still doesn't want to answer. That question lingers, and the longer it hangs in the air, the more pressure it puts on everyone else. Not in headlines or press releases, but in everyday decisions made quietly on dealer lots. A buyer compares numbers, sits in the cab, checks the price, and suddenly the spell is broken. The realization hits that they don't actually need to spend more to get what they want. The Fullback thrives in that moment of clarity. It doesn't rely on hype or urgency, it relies on logic, and logic is something the auto industry hasn't faced in a long time. When purchases stop being emotional and start being rational, inflated pricing becomes indefensible. There's also something almost old school about the way this truck enters the market. It feels like a product designed by engineers instead of marketing departments. Every decision points back to use, cost, and longevity. That approach resonates with buyers who feel alienated by modern vehicles that try too hard to be everything at once. And while some will dismiss the Fullback as not exciting, excitement is changing. In 2026, excitement isn't about excess power or oversized screens. It's about value. It's about walking away from a purchase without regret. It's about not feeling played. The Fullback taps directly into that shift. This truck also exposes a deeper contradiction. For years, automakers claimed affordability required sacrifice, yet here is a pickup that sacrifices almost nothing essential. It proves that many of the so-called necessities were never necessities at all. They were profit tools. And the longer this truck stays in the conversation, the more uncomfortable it becomes for competitors who built entire lineups around escalating prices. Adjusting now means admitting mistakes. Not adjusting means losing buyers who finally had enough. The 2026 Fiat Fullback doesn't need to dominate advertising cycles. Its power is cumulative. One buyer at a time, one comparison at a time, one uncomfortable question at a time. And as those questions multiply, the industry will be forced to confront something it's avoided for years. That confrontation won't happen in boardrooms first. It'll happen in sales numbers. It'll show up as slower turn rates, heavier incentives, and shrinking margins on trucks that used to sell themselves. That visual confidence is critical because affordability only works if pride of ownership still exists. There's also a long-term play happening here. By keeping the Fullback simple, Fiat lowers ownership anxiety, fewer sensors, fewer electronic dependencies, fewer systems waiting to fail once the warranty expires. In an era where repair bills scare buyers as much as purchase prices, that simplicity becomes a selling point all its own. And while some critics will call it basic, buyers are starting to realize basic isn't a weakness. It's freedom. Freedom from constant updates, freedom from subscription features, freedom from wondering if your truck will be obsolete in 5 years. The Fullback feels built for people who actually keep vehicles long term, not lease cycles and trade-in games. What really shifts the narrative is how the Fullback reframes value. Instead of asking how much tech you can pack into a truck, it asks how little you actually need. That mindset hits especially hard right now as inflation fatigue sets in and consumers grow tired of being upsold at every step. And this is where competitors face a brutal choice. Either admit prices went too far and walk them back, or double down on premium positioning and accept shrinking sales. Neither option is comfortable. Fiat, meanwhile, gets to play offense with a truck that speaks directly to buyer frustration. The 2026 Fullback doesn't need to dominate sales charts to win. It just needs to exist. It needs to sit on dealer lots with that $25,000 price tag and let buyers connect the dots on their own. Every test drive becomes a quiet challenge to the rest of the market. And as more people start asking why this truck exists at this price, the real pressure won't come from Fiat's marketing. It'll come from consumers who finally realize they were never asking for more, just being charged more. That shift in thinking is exactly what could turn the Fullback from a niche option into a serious threat. Because once buyers stop chasing excess, the entire value hierarchy collapses. And that response won't be immediate. It'll be slow, reluctant, and messy. Automakers don't like admitting they went too far, especially when high prices were profitable for so long. But the Fullback forces them into a corner where silence becomes more damaging than action. What's especially telling is how little Fiat had to do to make this truck appealing. No radical reinvention, no massive gamble, just discipline. Discipline in design, discipline in pricing, and discipline in understanding the customer. That restraint is exactly what the industry lost during years of easy credit and artificial demand. There's also an emotional angle here that can't be ignored. For many buyers, the Fullback represents a return to control. Control over spending, control over ownership, control over expectations. When vehicles stop feeling like financial traps, people engage differently with them, and brands that enable that gain trust quickly. And trust is something the truck market desperately needs right now. Incentives are rising, inventories are swelling, and buyers are more skeptical than ever. A truck like the Fullback doesn't need flashy promises. It just needs to deliver consistently. Every satisfied owner becomes proof that the market didn't have to end up this way. The Fullback also quietly challenges the narrative that only massive brands can dominate the truck space. It proves that smart positioning matters more than brute force. Fiat isn't trying to outmuscle anyone. It's exploiting a weakness that everyone else ignored: affordability fatigue. And as this truck continues to gain attention, the conversation will shift away from what's missing to why did we accept so much excess for so long? That shift is uncomfortable, but it's necessary. Markets don't correct themselves without friction. The longer the Fullback stays visible at that $25,000 price point, the harder it becomes to justify anything dramatically higher without real, tangible reasons. Features will have to earn their cost again. Pricing will have to make sense again, because once buyers see a different path, they stop accepting the old one. And that's where the real fallout begins. This is the kind of truck you keep for 10 years, not flip every 3 because software updates bricked something expensive. Dealers, though, are uneasy, and for good reason. A $25,000 pickup destroys the upsell model. There's less room to hide markups, fewer options to pad margins, and far less tolerance from buyers who know this truck's entire appeal is affordability.